from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this Tuesday night, and it's 7 minutes past the top of the hour. I want to jump into a few things tonight, but before I talk about the big fentanyl bust today in Oregon, I want to talk about how some pendejos are misunderstanding my statements last night regarding a clip of audio that I played about a mosque that was purchasing churches. And a couple of people went on to say that Rich Valdez is likely going to submit to Sharia law or happy to roll over or this and that, all because I said they're doing what they're allowed to do constitutionally. I didn't say that I want to see my daughters suffer under Sharia law, unlike some of these idiots out there. I didn't say that I want to hear their call to prayer 5 times a day. I want to hear my own call to prayer 5 times a day. And what this ultimately comes down to is this. What I said yesterday, I'm going to say it again for the people in the back who maybe didn't hear me or misunderstood me. If Christians, followers of Christ, Protestants, Catholics, if you identify as one of those and you acquiesce to building your faith, to building the body of believers where you are, abdicating your role and responsibility in the Great Commission, in the book of Matthew, the religious dominance that Christianity has had in this country. You're abdicating that. And that's going to leave a space for any religion, you fill in the blank, to fill that void. This is not the fault of those moving their agenda forward, i.e., Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Jewish, you name it. Anybody could be advancing their religion forward. In the absence of Christianity doing what it must do, someone will step in to fill in the gap. That's just a fact. This is the fault of those that are falling asleep at the wheel, myself included. I don't claim to be a preacher. I think the Apostle Paul said, I, Paul, a sinner, perhaps one of the worst, right? I feel like that most days. I'm not going to sit here and preach like I am high and mighty, but I am going to tell you that if you are going to look to your left and say, well, this brother from a different religion is married to 14 women and has 47 kids, and by virtue of having that many people, he's building his religion at a faster pace than I'm telling you, you've got a lot of work to do. I don't know if you need to start having more children. I don't know if you need to start recruiting your friends, but you need to do more. I need to do more. That's the point I'm making. I've never walked down the street and met a Christian brother that said, listen, bro, we're collecting donations right now because we're trying to get Christians elected to the city council. We'd like an all Christian city council in this upcoming election. Never in my life. Never heard it. Now, when Muslims band together and do it, it hits the news. And like the city of Patterson, I think, has now an all New Jersey, has an all Muslim city council. And it was all over the news. And my thought there is, if you're going to complain about that, then you need to do something about it. Not just complain. You need to say, you know what? Well, I'm going to do something about it. And this is beyond religion. This is everything. This is if you don't like what your local councilman is doing, if you don't like what your mayor's doing. everybody gets a chance to vote, and you get your due in complaining when you vote. But the reality is, if you want to see change, you've got to do something. You've got to get involved in a campaign. You've got to start a podcast, get a radio show, get a TV show, start writing a column, write a book, do something to reach people in your sphere of influence, however you can. For me, it started out volunteering on political campaigns when I was really young. This is now my 20th year, 7th year on radio. You don't have to take the path that I took. I served in government. I realized I did not like serving in government. I'm trying to make a point that as we hear more and more things about people of different faiths advancing the cause of their faith, you shouldn't feel afraid by that or threatened by that. You should feel inspired by that. There is a marketplace of ideas, and faith falls into that. And I have to say, may the best man win. Right? This is why I get on here, and this is why I always say, I don't hate the Democrats. I invite them to call the show all the time. I want them to come here and say what they have to say. In fact, there was a clip about a month ago from Rebel News out in Canada, and they interviewed somebody at a protest, and it's a short clip, but I want you to hear exactly what he said. Listen to this.
What would happen to a gay couple in Gaza?
They executed according to Islamic law. Really? Islam doesn't endorse gayism. Islam doesn't endorse homosexuality.
Okay, so would you like to see Sharia law in Canada replace Canadian law?
At some point it will. You know, because we have families, we are making babies. You're not. Your population is going down the slump. That's right? Yeah. By 2060, Muslims will be the biggest religious group the world over. Right. What are you going to do then?
What are you going to do then? By 2060, Muslims will be the biggest religious group the world over. You know what that sounds like to me? Sounds like they have a plan. They have a plan to dominate the globe with their faith. This is not a defense of Muslims. I don't dislike or begrudge the Muslims. I dislike the fact that somebody's going to come at me and say that I'm somehow wrong for acknowledging the truth that I see here. They're opening mosques. Are we opening churches? It's that simple. The clip from yesterday was a guy saying, I bought 5 churches that went defunct, and now have become 5 new mosques. I didn't do it. That guy did it. I didn't live in those communities. Somebody else lived in those communities. So my question to you is, are you going to allow that? Do you care about your faith that much? Do you care about the cause of Christ that much that you're willing to? This isn't about competition. This is not a religious competition, right? The people that are trying to proselytize, that are trying to share the gospel, the Great Commission, it's because they want to share the love of Christ and the redemptive blood of Christ and all that goes with it. It's not about competition. It's about the truth, the way, the life, the truth. It's that simple. And people are missing the message in getting caught up in competitiveness. It's not about competition. When we're talking about matters of faith, if you're a Christian, it's about Christ. It's that simple. Now, before I continue the conversation, I want to talk to you about something else I've been struggling with. When people call me and tell me I can't hear you in my area, or the reception at nighttime is not as strong on this or that. If you're struggling with getting good reception on your radio, get an internet radio. There's one by C. Crane. It's called the CC Wi-Fi 3. It's definitely the solution for you. Here's why it's so special. You connect the CC Wi-Fi 3 to the internet, and you're ready to tune in to over 30,000 stations worldwide, including radio stations that are carrying this show. No static, no fade. The voice-focused audio surpasses any smartphone that's on the market, and there's not even a need to sign into an app because it just works. You just plug and play. You don't have to worry about any additional monthly fees. Once you buy it, it's yours forever. And it's not a smart device per se, so you don't have to worry about eavesdropping microphones or pop-up ads or anything like that. So what do? You just use the remote control that comes with it, full-size remote control, makes finding everything super easy while you're sitting in your favorite easy chair. And that's it. It's never been simpler. And you can even use this stuff as a speaker, a Bluetooth speaker. So you can listen to music, podcasts while you're working in the yard, fishing, whatever. I definitely recommend you get one for yourself and one for everybody that you love. This is what you do. You order the CC Wi-Fi 3 by calling C. Crane at 1-800-522-8863. I'll give you that number again, 1-800-522-8863. Or just visit C. Crane online at their website, ccrane.com/rich. That's ccrane.com/RICH. And when you use code RICH at checkout, you're going to get 10% off any order over $75. Plus, it's available on Amazon. So what are you waiting for? Get one for yourself, get one for everybody that you love, and do it now. I'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue the conversation, and I want to talk about rhetoric for a second because, I find it funny that the latest 60 Minutes, right? And I'm going to play you a clip of Scott Pelley telling his story in a moment. But the story he tells is fascinating to me because he says that President Trump is unleashing an assault on the legal profession because they are critical of his policies. And all I could think is, I have personally met, known, and interviewed at least three, and probably more than that, but at least three people who faced losing their law license because of association with Trump, because they represented him, because they gave him due process, because they gave him a fair defense, because they were in the orbit of Trump world. Yet it's the other side saying that there's an assault on the legal profession. Meanwhile, it's the other side that assaulted their own colleagues in the legal profession. I can't think of a single lawyer from Hillary Clinton's campaign or the Democrat Party or anywhere else that, in fact, can say, oh, you know what, I lost my job or I lost my law license. I was, kicked off the bar because of being a Democrat. So then where's the real assault? Listen to this.
In recent weeks, President Trump has signed orders against several law firms, orders with the power to destroy them. That matters because lawsuits have been a check on the president's power. Many firms and attorneys have been targeted, among them Mark Elias, a longtime opponent of Trump, who is the only lawyer the president has named who was willing to appear on 60 Minutes. Elias and others are warning that Trump's assault on the legal profession threatens the rule of law itself. Elias says that, for him, it began with the president's personal grudge.
Donald Trump hates me because I fight hard and I fight for free and fair elections. I insist on fighting for democracy in court, fighting for voting rights in court, and insist on telling the truth about what the outcome of the 2020 election was.
Are there risks in doing the work that you're doing?
I'd be an idiot not to be worried. The question, though, is what do you do? Right? Do you just cower in the corner? Do you just try to disappear? Do you just leave democracy to fend for itself? Or do you stand tall and do the best you can every day to represent your clients and try to preserve the rule of law?
Mark Elias first crossed Trump in 2016. He was the top lawyer for the Clinton campaign. Then in 2020, when Trump and allies challenged the election results, Elias fought in court and won. Trump calls him a thug.
Donald Trump is the walking embodiment of everything that is wrong with the American political system. And so when Donald Trump says that I am unethical or that I am undermining his vision of America, I say, boy, I must be doing something right.
So Mark Elias thinks he's doing something right. I think Mark Elias is one of the most nefarious, shrewd, slick attorneys out there that uses the legal system in the most illegal way that's still legal, right? Because that's what lawyers do. But I want to get reaction from the president of the Oversight Project, Mike Howell. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me on.
You bet, Mike. Now, I'm sorry you had to hear all of that Mark Elias and all of that monotone Scott Pelley, but I needed to set this up fairly so people don't say I'm mischaracterizing anybody. And now everybody's heard what they actually said. And I think this is just insane that they're saying Trump is attacking, people using lawfare when Trump's probably the biggest victim of lawfare I've seen in my lifetime.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. And watch him getting shot in the face so they can go ahead and cry me a river. But, I mean, Scott Pelley put on his serious boy voice for that kind of introduction because 60 Minutes is in legal trouble themselves. It's obviously self-serving. They're trying to pretend there's some sort of assault coming from the legal system. They're just as bad. And Mark Elias, what a punk, just an absolute punk. This is a guy who was sanctioned. The courts sanctioned him for basically misleading the courts. So this guy is far from a clear track record. And let's just look at his body of work over the years. He is, they like to use the term threat to democracy. Well, I don't think anybody fits that term better if we were to use that. He has basically devoted his entire career to making sure the election system is ripe for abuse. He is not a defender of voting rights whatsoever. He is one of the biggest attackers of voter integrity, which is voting rights. I think we've seen in this country since the period of segregation. No one person has done more to make elections worse than Mark Elias. And I'm sure he would be very happy to hear that because that's what he tells his donors and those who fund it, that if he gets to work and gums up the legal system, he'll make it easier for Democrats to cheat. That's why he is their favorite, and I don't even want to call him an attack dog because you saw him on there. He's not a dog. He's a little puppy. But he, throws sand in the gears of an already corrupted legal system with partisan judges. And he does it because he thinks it helps Democrats win. So he can cry me a river, and he deserves everything coming his way.
Folks, we're on with Mike Howell, president of the Oversight Project. And Mike Howell, again, a good explanation. I think you're spot on there. Why has he not ever been called to the carpet? Why do so many people allow Mark Elias and those like him that are, prostituting the legal profession? Why do they let him get away with it?
Yeah, because the legal profession has largely been taken over, and you have a system in which the left has a lot of the legal industry, and they're more than willing to, serve pro bono clients on the left, Democrat politicians, et cetera, corporations. And on the right, our lawyers see other Americans basically a profit center. They see them as a client state. They're not ideological and supportive at all. They're in it to make a bunch of money. And you can see that because when Mark Elias got sanctioned, he had Republican lawyers defending him because they knew they could cash a fat check that came from Democrat donors. This is why the right loses in so many lawfare exercises. It's because legal representation's through the roof. I mean, look at the January 6th defendants. I represented one in front of Capitol Hill because she was otherwise faced with a mountain of debt, in his early 30s. But that doesn't exist on the left, so it's a one-sided fight. It's led to a weaponized system, and President Trump is showing tremendous leadership for the rule of law by trying to return to normalcy, where people can actually expect a lawyer and not just a big partisan, muckety-muck there.
Right, act fairly. All right, well, Mike Howell, we're coming right back. We're going to have the rest of this discussion straight ahead, folks. It's Rich Valdez and our guest, Mike Howell, president of the Oversight Project. Keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
For the first time last night, a federal judge permanently blocked the Trump administration from enforcing one of its many orders to punish a law firm Trump opposes politically. This one targeting the law firm Perkins Coie, which represented the 2016 Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton and works with billionaire donor George Soros. In a blistering opinion, U.S. District Judge Beryl Howell called Trump's efforts, quote, an unprecedented attack on the U.S. judicial system. Howell wrote, and I quote, "No American president has ever before issued executive orders like the one at issue in this lawsuit, targeting a prominent law firm with adverse actions to be executed by all executive branch agencies. But in purpose and effect, this action draws from a playbook as old as Shakespeare, who penned the phrase, 'The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers.'"
That's Jonathan Capehart on MSNBC over the weekend. And I think this is, again, when the Democrats don't have a whole lot to do politically, they start making stuff like this up. And it smacks of pure politics to me. But I want to get the reaction of our guest, Mike Howell, president of the Oversight Project at It's Your Gov on X. Mike Howell, what say you?
I say these are some dramatic folks out there on MSNBC and 60 Minutes and then all. I mean, Perkins Coie did one of the worst things this country's ever seen. They propagated the Russia hoax through their law firm on behalf of Hillary Clinton. They did severe damage to the national security of this country. They turned the intelligence agency into a much distracted and abused entity chasing the ghost of a Russian collusion hoax that never existed. And it had real-life policy impacts, real-life consequences for people that didn't deserve it. And Perkins Coie shouldn't be in business with the federal government after it's done those things. And that is the exclusive right of the President of the United States to determine who gets, the contracts and things like that and who it does business with. And it's not in the national interest to do business with an entity that had subverted the U.S. so blatantly. And so they're freaking out. Of course they are, because that's their power base. These lawyers and their big fees and their big donations and the people they work for and they get weaponized for. And so President Trump's driving fear into the heart of their system. And I'll add one thing. A bunch of these law firms agreed to settlement amounts to show they were de-weaponizing and returning to normalcy and serving both sides. And so what the Oversight Project is in the process of is we want to see if that's a true commitment. And not just for the firms that already announced it, but the firms that are, contemplated in potential future actions. And so we reached out to a lot of firms, and we asked each of them for $10 million in pro bono assistance. And here's a perfect example of a brand new conservative organization, common sense will even say, we need pro bono help. And so if these firms want to show that they are returning to normalcy and they are not weaponized, I think their pro bono committees should strongly consider giving us $10 million in support. And at the end of this exercise, we plan on releasing to the American public and the White House as well, the responses, because I think it's important to note that they can't just give head nods and say, all right, we're not going to do it again. They've serviced left-wing operations with pro bono funds, millions and millions of dollars annually, if not more. So let's test it. And that's what we're doing right now. We're testing it because we're a young upstart organization. We have a lot of people to sue and a lot to do, and we're going to get it done one way or the other.
I love that. I love that. We're going to put their back against the wall, ask them for $10 million in pro bono assistance and see if they actually come
reasonable.
Through.
We could.
Did we lose you, Mike Howell? I think the deep state got him. Oh, that stinks. Well, right on topic with this, the minute he starts talking about getting pro bono assistance, the deep state cuts the line. One of the things that I think is driving all of this is all of the lawfare, right, that goes on. Wait, hold on. I'm getting word in my ear. We got Mike Howell back. The deep state can't keep a good man down. Mike Howell, thanks for coming back.
They can't, but my mom can. My mother just gave me a call, and she booted you off. So I don't know what happened there. So deep state can't keep you down, but my mom certainly can. They
family first.
Never stop.
I love that.
But I was saying, $10 million, reasonable. It's a reasonable amount given the scale of support they've given to other operations. So I'll be reporting to the public soon how that goes and whether these law firms are actually returning to serving both sides and being even-handed, or if they're just one-sided operations.
Well, I can't wait to hear the outcome of that. I'm wondering if we make enough noise and embarrass them, if they'll actually have to, come through with some of that support. So keep us posted on that. But I want you to hear another clip. This one's from CNN just a couple of days ago, saying that a judge that was appointed by Trump, which is, in my opinion, likely a horse trade from a McConnell deal somewhere, is saying that the president's use of the Alien Enemies Act is unlawful. And I want you to check this one out.
A Trump-appointed federal judge in Texas ruled that the president unlawfully invoked the Alien Enemies Act and blocked the administration from quickly deporting some alleged gang members. I want to quickly bring in Priscilla Alvarez, who's got the details. Priscilla, tell us more.
Dana, this is a significant blow for the Trump administration, which has wanted to lean on this sweeping wartime authority, the Alien Enemies Act. Well, a federal judge in Texas saying just moments ago that the president exceeded his authority by invoking this law that was intended to be used during wartime. Let me read you a snippet of what he said. He said, quote, allowing the president to unilaterally define the conditions when he may invoke the AEA, the Alien Enemies Act, and then summarily declare that those conditions exist would remove all limitations to the executive branch's authority under the AEA and would strip the courts of their traditional role of interpreting congressional statutes to determine whether a government official has exceeded the statute's scope. It goes on to say the law does not support this position. The position, Dana, that the administration has taken is that Tren de Aragua, that Venezuelan gang, is a foreign terrorist organization and that they are invading the United States. And so the administration has said that they can use the authority based on that. Well, this federal judge is not buying it, according to this opinion.
So this is interesting, right? Because this comes today, right? We're seeing reports of teenage members of Tren de Aragua going out there and harassing and attacking police in New York City. So, Mike Howell, how long does this last? Is this something that goes to the Supreme Court? What's the next step here?
Yeah, I think all these lawsuits and injunctions and unconstitutional kind of judicial actions, I think, are headed to the Supreme Court because they all involve one central question that needs to be answered. And that central question is the president of the United States, even if you don't like him, allowed to be the president? They all relate to presidential authority. So whether this is the vehicle or another one is like his ability to fire people who work for him or his ability to conduct foreign policy as he sees fit, they all revolve around that question. So we need some Supreme Court clarification on the obvious, that no, the president is the president and district court judges are not the president. And on this specific case, I will say, where were these judges when the border was open and overrun? You don't need to go to Harvard Law School. You don't even need to go to community college law school. You don't need to go to law school online or just Wikipedia the Constitution to understand the much graver constitutional abuse that the judiciary allowed was the purposeful flooding of the border for political purposes to change this country in a way that the Democrats thought benefited them. And so Americans are rapidly losing trust in the judiciary. And obviously they've already lost trust in the media who's trying to spin this as a Trump attack on the judiciary. No, this is judiciary acting as rogue agents for political ends. And people see through it. And it's really a shame because our system requires judges to act honorably and within the bounds of the law. And when you have judges who kind of don't do that for immediate political ends, you really start having a constitutional crisis issue. And the problem is, on the left, clearly they've appointed activist judges who are just ends-oriented for a long time. But even on the right, Republicans, in their Chamber of Commerce kind of wing, appoint people who are not ideologically aligned, who politically are opposed and will have the same temptations as the left. And frankly, are only there for, as Republican noms because they're friendly to big business and corporate interest. And so it's going to take a long time to get the judiciary back to a place where it's actually neutral. But I think in the short term, we need a Supreme Court clarification that, yes, President Trump can actually be the president of the United States.
Yeah, really well put. Excuse me, Mike Howell. Mike, let everybody know how they find you and keep up to speed with all the great work that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an exciting time. So we were at the Heritage Foundation for a long time, and Kevin Roberts, the president there, really set us up well to start a new organization because we need to go out and sue some state governors and others out there. And so the Oversight Project is a new independent entity. You can find us on X at itsyourgov. Our website's itsyourgov.org. If you want to help us sue some of these radical, Democrat governors out there, we're looking at California, Illinois, Maryland, all these people who think they're running for president by thwarting the agenda and launching these lawsuits. We're the counter resistance, and we need to get out there. And, I've criticized the law firms a lot, and because I think they deserve it, we're able to take this fight a lot further than a lot of other people are. And when you have the right wing who's not supporting these fights, we built something to do it instead because we saw the void, and we built into the void. And we're ready to launch this out, so I'd appreciate you following us, anything you can do. Thank you, everyone, and we look forward to having a lot of fun together.
Outstanding. Well, keep up the good work. Mike Howell, Oversight Project President. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I appreciate it, brother.
Thank you very much for having me on.
You bet. And amigos, we will continue with your thoughts, your calls, reactions, everything that you want to talk about. And again, we're talking about Tren de Aragua here and this attack on the police in New York City. We're going to speak with New York City Councilman Frank Morano about that. We're also going to have some additional conversation on, well, just there's so many things that we're going to talk about. Probably too many for me to list. But I also want to talk about the Supreme Court case on religious education that was just at the Supreme Court. So keep it locked here, folks. Lots to discuss. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And big fentanyl bust today. The feds, under the direction of the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, announcing at a news conference today that 3 million fentanyl pills were retrieved from this. I mean, dozens of guns, cash, all sorts of stuff, including one of the biggest bad guys out there, an illegal alien that was leading this whole operation. But listen to this.
These pills were stamped as oxycodone. Let that sink in. 3 million pills going on our streets. 3 million pills, the streets of our country, laced with fentanyl, labeled as oxycodone. And they were in all different strengths of fentanyl within them.
How about that? That's some serious fentanyl right there. And I got to tell you that the whole thing is weird to me. And the whole idea that we have this all of a sudden, right? And I know we've had some law enforcement or retired law enforcement on saying that, we're hearing it more now. It's being reported more now. But I can't help but think the reason we're hearing it more now is because we're doing it more now, right? The fact I'd never heard stories about judges that were harboring Tren de Aragua. I never heard stories about judges that were telling the federal law enforcement agents to go to see the chief judge while they were helping an illegal alien out the back door of the court to help them abscond. I never heard of those things. I think what we're seeing here is that this administration has its finger on the pulse of what is going on, and they're applying pressure in the right places. And I think that's fantastic. I really do. Anyway, I want to get to your calls right now. I want to go to Paul. Paul is in Boise, Idaho, giving us a call tonight. Paul, go right ahead.
Thanks for calling on me, Rich. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your show. You give out a lot of information that we don't get during the regular fake news.
Thank you.
I feel as though we've got a country full of marchands. They're almost like an army coming at El Trumpido. And you remember what Marchand was like. I know you do.
Yeah. Talk to me about, because I want to get to the point that you're making here, is about Canada, right? Because I think that there's an interesting thing with Carney and with Trudeau in Canada.
Right. I think he dressed him up today. I got to see most of it, and it was almost like watching a recital of a with a Stradivarius from 1725, 300 years old, being played to this guy by El Trumpito. He played him like a fiddle. I guess that'd be the better way to say it. But he had kind of that deer in the headlights look, like he could see the buzzsaw coming at him, but he couldn't do nothing about it. Kind of like the deer in the headlights look that Biden had when they had that last debate.
Oh boy, I was talking to somebody about that debate yesterday, and they were like, it really was unfair. He was so unprepared and blah blah blah. Biden, obviously, and I thought, you're right. The poor guy was in bad shape. He was lost, and probably what I think helped Trump win that. Not to get too off track here, but what helped Trump win that. Obviously, he was going to win regardless, but was the moment where he said, "I don't even know what he said." I don't think even he knows what he said. It was humorous, but I think Trump was being very serious there, making the point that this was an unfair fight, right? He could have won that with both hands tied behind his back, and I think that's ultimately it. Anyway, thank you, Paul, for the call. I appreciate it, and I think you're right. And we'll get into a little bit of this Canada stuff in a little bit. I also want to get into the Supreme Court ruling on trans in the military. I also want to talk about the Tren de Aragua and the attack on the police, and we have some conversation on that. We've got a lot to talk about. So again, Paul, thank you for your call. Amigos, coming back to your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez here, keeping you company all night long. And a couple of big cases in front of the Supreme Court. There's a historic parental choice and religious liberty case, which is fundamentally asking whether religious schools are entitled to funding from charter school programs. And we're going to get into that. There's also another big case that was a big win for the Trump folks today. With respect to transgenders in the military. The Supreme Court sided with the Trump administration in lifting a lower court order that paused the Pentagon's transgender military ban from taking effect. And the High Court made its rule today, or ruling, I should say. And again, big win for Trump. Now, Justices Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, Ketanji Brown Jackson, were going to deny the administration's appeal and keep the lower court injunction in place, but that didn't happen, right? And they were able to get it through. So we're going to talk about this case and, moreover, the other case, the charter school case, in a little bit. But I want to go to the phones with a minute to go. Sorry that I didn't give you enough time here. Eduardo, Tampa, Florida, listening at richvaldez.com. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Rich, well, you got into it. Thank you for opening that up on the transgender, on the military. And I saw today that Riley Gaines was attacked over there in Portland University. Obviously, they were not very happy about her appearance over there.
Well, we'll look into that during the break.
More of that garbage.
Yeah,
from universities. Yeah.
Sadly, that's how the left reacts all too often. Hey, Eduardo, if you can give us a call back, I'd appreciate it. I'm sorry I didn't give you enough time here, but I'll look into the Riley Gaines stuff too. I think she's terrific in what she does. So, folks, we're coming back. There's more to come if you're still with us. If not, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of the program. We're live, we're national. Happy to be with you. It's a blessing to be on this microphone. 7 minutes past the top of the hour. Here's the phone number if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation. 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez. And some of what I'm going to get into now is from the hometown here, from New York City. We've got a lot going on. You've got gang members that are running around attacking the police. And I'm going to backtrack on that just a little bit. Of course, there was a big fentanyl bust. I want to get into that. Secretary Noem grilled by a couple of members of Congress today, pro-terrorist congresswomen, in my opinion, that are really trying to advocate for those that are not Americans, advocating for those that are against Americans. Really just is such an interesting time to be alive, to see an entire party, right? The Democrat Party, the once great party, the party that was once JFK's party, literally advocating for things that are just, in my opinion, not in the national interest. You know, they used to make arguments, at least they were like in disagreement with the Republicans on things like, oh, go to war or don't go to war. Spend more money, don't spend more money, right? Different types of arguments that, hey, to each his own. But when it comes to some of these things, it's just beyond the pale, right? Anyway, I want to talk about that. We're going to get into some discussion about what's going on in New York, but I wanted to give you a clip of this big drug bust that happened in Oregon today. It's one of the bigger stories that I've been following today because I think it's important. I think it's important that we are out there in a active position, right? Taking an active posture against cartels. And this cartel member from the Sinaloa cartel was hiding out in Oregon. And Pam Bondi, read them all the riot act today. Listen to this.
The head of this organization, Sinaloa organization, here in the country illegally, 6 of these guys and women here in the country illegally. His name is Alberto Salazar Amaya. He is the leader, and he was living in Salem, Oregon. With him, they got millions of dollars, cash, cars, but the drugs were in Albuquerque, Phoenix, and Utah. That's how insulated these drug dealer cartel leaders make themselves.
Insulating themselves from trying to, avoid and evade prosecution. But listen to the payload of everything that went down as she lays out the entire case.
This multi-agency operation led by DEA with our local, state, tribal, and federal partners targeted one of the largest and most dangerous drug trafficking and foreign terrorist organizations in our country. The DEA seized 11.5 kilos of fentanyl, including an astounding approximately 3 million fentanyl pills, the largest seizure in our nation's history.
Largest seizure in American history. 3 million fentanyl pills. I mean, this is a pretty big deal. And I'm glad that it's happening, right? Because you've got to be in the fight. You've got to be in the fight. And if we're not doing this stuff, we're not in the fight. So, again, kudos to Pam Bondi, Cash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pete Hegseth, the whole crew, our whole national security apparatus here, that Kristi Noem, that are out there doing what they got to do, because it's about time. I feel like we spent the better part of the last 4 years acquiescing to the cartels, coming up with excuses as to why we're doing what we're doing. You're coming up with the craziest emotional excuses of why we're letting people hand over fist into our country, why we can't fight the war on drugs, why this and why we can't that. One excuse after the next. And it's time that we put an end to that. And you get people that say, no, we're not taking no for an answer. And I, for one, love that. Now, if that were the same approach that people were taking in New York City, maybe we'd be doing better. Sadly, that's not the case that we're taking in New York City. So straight ahead, we're going to talk about New York City. We're going to talk about the Tren de Aragua people, that teenagers, matter of fact, minors, 10 plus. I think the number is now 17 of them that attacked the police just for doing their job. And we're going to get some reaction to that from New York City Councilman Frank Morano, who's scheduled to join us, as well as discussion on a few other things that are New York-centric and that have national implications. So keep it locked right here. But first, I want to tell you about something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the radio. Right? A couple of weeks ago, the 18th of April, or the 17th, I forget which day it was, I celebrated my 7th year in radio. And this is my passion, right? I love the radio. I like TV, too. Don't get me wrong. But I love the radio because you're able to make such a intimate connection with people. You know, people that like a particular radio talk show host, they don't like them because of how they look, right? They like them because of not even their voice in many ways. It's because of how relational they can be, because they feel like they know you because you spend so much time together. And that's a relationship that I think you can't really get on television. And the reason I say that is because when I endorse a product, if I were on TV, you would hear a 30-second commercial. Guess what? In radio, you have 30-second and minute-long commercials as well. But you never see somebody doing a TV program, right? Let's just say the great one, Mark Levin, on his television show, and stop and say, this is why I like this product, and go into, an endorsement on the product. Because it's not something you do in television, because people don't listen with the same intensity or don't watch with the same intensity that people listen to radio in. But in radio, I think everybody knows a good thing when they hear one. So if you're struggling with getting the right reception, the clear, crystal clear reception that you'd like to have in your home or at work or wherever you listen to this program, I want to recommend to you the C Crane CC Wi-Fi 3. It's an internet radio, and it's definitely the solution for you. Here's why I think it's so special. I'll tell you. When you connect the CC Wi-Fi 3 to the internet, you're ready to tune into over 30,000 radio stations across the globe, including stations that are listening to, if you want to listen to my show, they're carrying my show. No static, no fade, just clear. It also has something called voice-focused audio, and it surpasses any smartphone audio on the market today. Plus, there's no need to sign into an app. You don't have to worry about additional monthly fees once you buy it. That's it. It's yours. And there's no concerns over eavesdropping or microphones that are listening to you or even pop-up ads, because it's a radio just powered by the internet. And while you're sitting in your favorite easy chair, be my guest to use the full-size remote that comes with this thing to listen to whatever you want to listen to in terms of talk shows. Hopefully it's mine. But if you want to hear my podcast, you can do that as well. And you could even listen to your favorite music, because this thing doubles as a Bluetooth speaker. So if you want to order a CC Wi-Fi 3, call C Crane at 1-800-522-8863 or visit C Crane online at ccrane.com/rich. That's ccrane.com/RICH and use my name, Rich, RICH, when you check out to get 10% off any order that's higher than $75. And it's also available on Amazon. So what are you waiting for? Give them a call. Go check them out. Go to ccrane.com/rich and do that now.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Police say more than 10 suspected gang members, many of them minors, attacked 2 NYPD officers in uniform. The melee broke out in Times Square as the officers tried to stop an apparent assault or robbery attempt. Soon, a group of teens are seen on video attacking the officers. The 2 officers jump in to try to stop a couple of teen suspects from carrying out an apparent assault. But soon a gang jumps in to try to stop the officers from making the arrests. Video shows the officers being shoved, objects being thrown at them, and then the group flees. Several of the teen suspects in custody, one as young as 12, one flashing gang symbols. The suspects believed to be associated with the notorious TDA gang. Former NYPD Chief of Department Terry Monahan on what police are saying about the suspects.
Part of a known gang called Diablo 42, or the Devils of 42nd Street, which is a younger offshoot of the Trendeagua gang from Venezuela.
One additional suspect arrested this afternoon. He gave his address as the Roosevelt Hotel. Friday's incident in Times Square happened amid the much-hyped boxing matches held there, including the bout between Ryan Garcia and Raleigh Romero.
And by the way, I saw that boxing match. That was fantastic. That whole outdoor ring thing. That's pretty cool. But that's the case. They're attacking cops in Times Square. I want to get to the bottom of this with someone I know really well, but in his new capacity as a newly elected councilman for the city of New York, representing Staten Island, Councilman Frank Morano. Welcome, sir.
Rich, my liberty-loving Latino amigo, it is great to be with you, my friend. I'm a big fan of yours personally, and congratulations on the success that you've had with this show. I'm honored to be on, even if it involves talking about a story as distasteful as this one.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Very kind of you. And Councilman Morano, I want to pick your brain on this because, you know, this seems like a replay of something that happened last January where they were effectuating an arrest. And as they were trying to cuff the guy on the ground, his friends came, kicked the cops. It was an absolute disgrace. And now we're seeing the same thing happen, but this time the perpetrators are younger.
Yeah, I mean, look, I wish I could say that I was surprised, but this is a perfect storm of government mismanagement. On the one hand, you have porous borders that allow these people to come into the country with very little, if any, vetting to begin with. Then you have the sanctuary city and sanctuary state policies of places like New York, where law enforcement, at least until recently, has been expressly prohibited from honoring ICE detainer requests. Then you have a situation where you have discovery reform and a host of other issues that make it tougher for prosecutors and cops to arrest people. And then you have DAs that quite simply don't want to prosecute these folks. Now, I don't think they ever would not prosecute someone that's involved in an overt assault like this. But how many arrests led to this where folks were charged with misdemeanors that instead of felonies? I mean, it's just atrocious. And in general, there's this tremendous lack of respect for law enforcement and for the police, which leads somebody to think that they could get away with something like this. And in fact, it's more than a lack of respect. There's almost a pride in some quarters where you get some street cred for going after a police officer like this.
Yeah, it's an absolute disgrace. Amigos, we're on with New York City Councilman Frank Morano of talk radio fame. And Councilman Morano, I want to, I guess, what is the city saying? I know that there was a response from elite Eric Adams, the mayor of the city of New York, saying that this won't be tolerated. But, you know, that kind of falls on deaf ears when it comes to me. I'm not a huge fan or even a small fan. I should say I'm probably a medium-sized detractor of Eric Adams. I don't think that he's done a very effective job, and I think a lot of this has festered because of his lack of leadership. But I understand the position that you're in, and you've got to work with this guy. But ultimately, what is the city doing to make sure that this doesn't happen again?
Well, look, in the case of Eric Adams first, let me answer your question in two parts. Here you have a guy that went from essentially being Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to being Tom Tancredo, right? He went from comparing the migrants that were coming here from around the country. He was comparing them to the immigrants that came through Ellis Island. Couldn't do enough for them. Free housing, free education, free Metro cards, free shelter, free food, you name it. To all of a sudden now he's cracking down, or at least rhetorically cracking down, on these folks and wanting to put ICE at Rikers, which he's at loggerheads with the city council over. So rhetorically, we're hearing a lot of good things from the mayor, but in actual practice, you know, he has this Charter Revision Commission, which is meeting now. The New York City Charter is basically New York's Constitution. And this Charter Revision Commission is how you get amendments to the Constitution. And these are all people appointed by him. And yet they've released their preliminary recommendations. And in spite of testimony from people like me and others that want to end New York City's sanctuary city policies, we have not seen any movement from the Charter Revision Commission in terms of putting a question to end sanctuary cities on the ballot. So it's really, it falls on deaf ears when it comes to Eric Adams, because here you have a guy that could do something about it, but is choosing not to. So that's kind of how I view the Adams situation when it comes to this.
Amigos, we're on with New York City Councilman Frank Morano. And I think your analysis is spot on here, Frank Morano. Now, looking past this and looking into, you know, how we, I guess, move forward beyond this. You've got a very aggressive administration in Washington. You have like you said, a new Tom Tancredo-esque administration in the city. And ultimately, I think we have to come up with this happy medium here where the people of the city of New York feel like they're safe. And I don't know that the people can feel safe if the cops aren't safe.
Well, and I'll tell you what, it's not even just a function of a perception of citizens not feeling safe. The police are not feeling as if that law enforcement has their backs, you know, in part because of anti-cop legislation passed by entities like the city council. Police are afraid that even if they're in the process of subduing a perp, who in some cases might be violent, if they have to, God forbid, throw a sharp elbow here and there, that they might end up on the receiving line of a CCRB complaint, or at worst, an indictment. So it has led to a situation where you see police officers not being proactive and exercising a level of restraint that you don't want to see from law enforcement.
100%. Amigos, we're on with New York City Councilman Frank Morano. He's going to come back. We're going to learn a little bit more about how New York City got yet another Republican councilman. He's going to tell us that story straight ahead. Keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdez. I'm with you live for the next couple hours, and I'm here with my buddy, Councilman Frank Morano. Don't go anywhere.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Frank, I've known for many years in the world of talk radio, where I've been a host for 35 years. He's been with me most of that way as a producer, also as a personality on the air. This guy's the #1 overnight radio host in America now, which takes a lot, and he's walking away from it. He's not a politician. You know, people like to say he's not a politician. No, he's a selfless servant, and he's been that way for years. He didn't need an elective office to be selfless. That's the way he is.
That, of course, is the great Curtis Sliwa paying some kudos and some homage to Frank Morano, the newly minted councilman for New York City, coming out of Staten Island, replacing the seat vacated by former New York City Council minority leader Joe Borelli. And Frank, like I mentioned earlier, a colleague of mine in radio at the great WABC, and now dedicating himself to public service for his community. And you gotta respect that. I can't think of something that would take me away from the radio. So I tip my hat to Frank Morano. Frank, welcome back, sir.
Great to be here, Rich, and it's great to hear those nice words from the man I hope is going to be New York's next mayor, Curtis Lewa, who similarly was just a radio giant and is doing a lot of good things in the hopes of being able to make the city a better place.
Well, since we're on the topic, like I just said, there's very few things that would take me away from radio. I can't think of one right now, not a single political office. But the fact that you are a kid from Staten Island and you decided to run to represent Staten Island and the city that you love, that you've grown up in, you still live in, what was it that pushed you over to that where you like Curtis said, your show followed mine. And on from the wee hours of 1 a.m. to 5 a.m, and it was a great show. What made you say, I'm a young guy, I'm doing my thing? You got syndicated in a bunch of markets, and you said, let me walk away from this to serve in the capacity of a councilman for the city of New York.
Well, it's such a good question, Rich, and honestly, that was the one of the most challenging aspects of this. Because I did think that if I ran, we'd have a good shot at winning. But, I had a radio career, which was very much on an upward trajectory. So I loved doing it. It was a lot of fun. And as our old friend Bernard McGurk used to say, it was not exactly like I was doing brain surgery or working in a coal mine. It's a lot of hard work. But if, God forbid, you make a mistake, no one's dying. It's not exactly an environment where you feel like there's a lot at stake if, God forbid, you make a mistake. So ultimately it came down to a few factors. I was a great admirer of my predecessor, Joe Borelli, and when it came time he was term limited, and when it came time to seeing who was going to fill his shoes, I didn't know that there was going to be anyone that was, that was going to be able to match his ability to communicate a populist conservative message in a city like New York at a time where I felt it was essential that message gets communicated. But beyond that, I really got so frustrated with the fact that so many of my friends, family members, and neighbors moved out of Staten Island and out of New York City. And, we have a 3-year-old, and I wanted to be able to say to him when he became an adult that I did whatever it took to keep him here. And I at least gave it my all in order to keep him here rather than have it be someone else's problem. Because when he's an adult and, when I'm looking back at my career, I don't want to think, oh, why didn't somebody do something? If not me, who? If not now, when? Right? So I thought to myself, let me at least put myself out there. Let me put my ideas out there. And if the people reject me, at least I still have a great shot being on the radio, and I'll happily do that. But it won't be for not having tried. So now that I've been elected, I'm going to give it my all to make this city a better place and make Staten Island a better place.
Well, I love that. Amigos, we're on with Frank Morano, councilman for the city of New York, representing Staten Island. And Frank, you had to compete for this seat that was vacated by Joe Borelli, and you just won this election, a week ago, right?
Correct. Exactly a week ago, right around this time.
And so you win it a week ago, and now you have to compete for this seat because that was a special election to fill the seat vacated. Now you're competing again in an open primary in June. Is that accurate?
That's right. 49 days from today, I'll be on the ballot again. And I'm working very hard, just as we did for the special election. I'm out there working hard for the primary, trying to convince people why I'm the best candidate for the Republican Party and why I deserve the opportunity to hold this seat going forward. So as of now, I will hold this seat to the end of the year, to January 1st. If I win in June and November, then I would get a 4-year term and the opportunity to serve for 4 years.
Now, Frank, what do you say to, there's a lot of people that listen to this program, believe it or not, a lot of them who are in different parts of the country all have roots in New York. It's so funny. I got one guy from West Virginia. I think Tommy from West Virginia. And you're expecting somebody with a twang, and this guy comes out with this serious Bronx accent. There's a lot of New Yorkers out there. And many of them aren't that shy to put their hand in their pocket and send a donation to a good New Yorker running for office, a good conservative in New York. What do you say to them to get them to send a donation your way?
Well, what I would say is a few things. One is they should check out my website at moranoforcouncil.com. That's MORANO for council.com. And they could check out my views and see how an urban conservative agenda looks. But what I would say is the place where conservatism needs to, be waged on the battlefield of ideas is not in Mississippi, it's not in Alabama, it's not in Montana, and it's not in West Virginia. It's in New York City. So if Republicans and conservatives can make inroads in a city that's deep blue, we can make inroads anywhere. And I think if we can show that our ideas, whether it be on public safety, whether it be on taxes, whether it be on cost of living, whether it be on affordability, whether it be on a host of other issues, even things like traffic congestion and zoning, if those ideas can be won in New York City, then they can be won anywhere. And it's our opportunity, as we showed in the 1990s under Mayor Giuliani in New York. It's our opportunity to show that if you give us the keys to the car, we will steer it away from the ditch. And I think this could really be a model for successful conservative governance all over the city. And aside from that, a city like New York is so large with upwards of 9 million people that the decisions that are made here, for better or worse, they affect the whole country. I mentioned Mayor Giuliani. The crime reduction that he presided over in New York in the 1990s was so large, and the population in New York was so large, that the crime reduction numbers in New York actually impacted the entire country in terms of having the crime rate of the whole country go down. So that's a win for taxpayers. It's a win for everybody.
Frank Morano, councilman for the city of New York, representing Staten Island. And Councilman Morano, in a couple of minutes that we have remaining, what's at the top of your agenda now that you have been elected, you've fulfilled your commitment to Carmine, your son, and you're ready to rock and roll for your neighborhood, for your city? What do you do now?
Well, a couple things. One, there's a couple of local issues that I won't get too into the weeds with because of your many listeners in South Jersey and West Virginia and Chicago and others. For instance, we want to stop this homeless shelter that is in the pipeline, which is way out of character with where the district is and what the district looks like. We're going to stop that and a couple of other bad projects. But in terms of a citywide agenda, it comes down to the twin issues of taxes and affordability. Every day when I'm out campaigning, I'm meeting people that have lived here, that have grown up here, that have raised their children here, that may now be retired. And because of the rising costs of property taxes and property tax assessments, they can't afford to stay here. And they're being forced to sell their homes in their only communities they've ever known because of cost. They simply can't afford to live here, especially on a fixed income that a retiree might have. Those are the folks that I'm fighting for on a daily basis. Also, the folks that see the optics of illegal immigrants that get to come to New York and be given seemingly everything, where these folks have had to work hard for anything and everything. I want to level the playing field so that the folks that have played by the rules, that have followed the law, that have done their jobs, that have paid their taxes, can afford to stay here and not see their taxpayers siphoned to folks that shouldn't even be in the country, let alone the city.
Folks, check out the website, moranoforcouncil.com. Learn about Frank. Help him out if you can. He's a solid guy. He's conservative on many of the issues, lifelong New Yorker, smart guy, and his heart's in the right place. Frank Morano, let everybody know how they could follow you on social.
Well, if you go to MoranoForCouncil.com, there's links to me everywhere. On Twitter, you could just simply find me at Frank Morano. That's Frank, Morano. And whether you agree or disagree, or whether you're in New York or out of New York, I love to engage on ideas. You know, when I do a lot of radio shows around the country, some of the best ideas that I have for pursuing an urban conservative agenda comes from listeners around the country. And I'm always amazed at the wisdom of people, just regular people listening who aren't necessarily professional politicians or policy wonks. They have some of the brightest ideas that anyone has. So those are definitely the folks that I want to hear from. Reach me, email me, follow me on social media, go to MoranoForCouncil.com.
Frank Morano, Councilman Morano, I want to wish you the best of luck. Congratulations on this first step in your political career. I think you're going to have many more successes to come. Godspeed to you, sir.
Thank you, Rich. Congratulations on all your success with the radio show. I do miss listening every night as I was driving in, but I still listen quite a bit at home. I just don't get to steal as many of your talk topics to do on my show later that same night. But the audience, I hope they realize how lucky they are to have you. I know the stations that you're on certainly do.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Brother, again, Godspeed to you. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and we'll talk again real soon.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll look forward to seeing you in person very soon.
You bet. Councilman Frank Morano, everybody. And we're going to continue this conversation about the violence that's being perpetrated against New York City police officers by Tren de Aragua. We're also going to talk about how the Democrats are coming to the defense of who? Those same bad guys, as well as others that are in the country illegally and being alleged to be criminals. So keep it locked right here. More to come straight ahead. I'm Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, to the phones we go to get your thoughts and reaction to what is going on in America at night. Of course, I am Rich Valdez, your host extraordinaire with the best head of hair in radio, at least late night radio, that is. And our number, 833-4VALDEZ. Let's go to Canton, Ohio, WNIR, checking in with Debbie. Debbie, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Thank you, Rich. Thanks for listening to me.
Pleasure.
I have a concern about someone I know that's been in this country for 30 years, married to an American man, gave birth to 2 sons here in this country, still undocumented. Her oldest son at 25 lost his life serving in the military for our country, left behind a wife and a baby. And her younger son at 13 still wants to fight for this country as an air pilot. Mm-hmm. Now, do you think she should be deported and put somewhere, or do you think she needs due process before that happens?
Well, here, the first part of this is if this woman is married to an American, there's no reason why she shouldn't have citizenship or at least residence, because once you're married to somebody who's American, you can apply for that very easily. And that's number one. Number two, what I think really doesn't matter much, but I will answer your question. The due process that's afforded to people is different in certain circumstances, right? So as long as she's not being removed under the Alien Enemies Act, because the Alien Enemies Act removes people that are a threat to national security, and it uses no due process, right? So the due process they get is that the warrant to remove them, or however it's phrased, the order is issued and they're removed pretty much immediately. Now, if she's not affiliated with a foreign terrorist organization like Tren de Aragua or the Mara Salvatrucha 13, the MS-13 gang, which are now labeled foreign terrorist organizations, she'll go before an immigration court and a judge. Now, if she's getting deported quickly, it's because she was already given a date and, did not show up to court and has been here for 30 years and never made an effort. So, it's, again, not up to me. It's up to what the law says. And the law says, everybody gets some level of due process. Maybe you and I would get a different level of due process in a criminal proceeding. But, these immigration proceedings vary from person to person depending on what's being alleged.
Thank you, Rich. Bye.
Yeah, you're welcome, Debbie. Thank you. It's always nice to hear from Debbie. And I want to hear from the rest of you guys. You know the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ, and we're going to get into that. We're also going to talk about this Supreme Court case. There's two of them I want to talk about. I want to talk about the religious schools applying for charters, right, for a charter through the State Department of Education to become a charter school. And moreover, the other case that was, decided today, whereas the transgender members of the U.S. military, the ban on that was held. And it was held that it's okay. You can continue the ban on transgenders in the military. Again, that coming out of the Supreme Court today. So all of that and more straight ahead. Your calls coming up, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez, and we go to the phones. Tonight we've got Tony calling us from Ontario, Canada. Go right ahead, Tony.
How you doing, Rich?
Good, brother. Go for it.
Usually Tony from Montreal, but be real quick. The lawfare you're talking about, I checked out the original injunction that was issued against Trump by a judge by the name of Benjamin Settle in the 9th District Courts. And subsequently, they went to an appeal, and they lost. But the three judges that they lost to were appointees by Biden, Obama, and Clinton. And then when it went up to the Supreme Court, of course, the injunction was overturned. But again, Kachanji, Cajun, and I believe Sotomayor were all against the overturning. And so you have all of these lawfare type of people. You have all of this BLMism, which I call the new BLMism lawfare.
The new BLMism lawfare. I like that. Tony, thanks for the call, brother. I appreciate it. Shout out to Tony, who's in Ontario tonight, usually in Montreal. Shout out to all of our Canadian listeners. And amigos, we continue the conversation straight ahead. We're going to talk about lawfare. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court. And, of course, your calls, 833-4-VALDEZ. It's open phones across America with me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere. Coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the program. I am Rich Valdez, and our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. If you want to join our late night national town hall conversation, feel free. I'd love to. We call it Open Phones across America, and I love it when you guys weigh in. And just so you know, that includes Canada and wherever else, the Philippines. We've got listeners all over. But I want to start with a few things. Obviously, all evening I've been talking about this big drug bust in Oregon. 3 million pills of fentanyl. A big bad guy, illegal alien who's in charge of it all. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But I just wanted to put that out there as one of the things I want to talk about. The Supreme Court has made a ruling to allow transgenders to remain banned from the military. We'll get into that one in just a few minutes, as well as the case on religious education, or I should say religious institutions applying for public education charters. That's going to be a really good talk as well. But on the international front, you've got Britain and India signing a trade deal, which is a pretty good deal. You know, trying to, I guess, make the best of the situation. And just give you a little bit of this. The British government said it had secured the best deal India has ever agreed to, and they'll provide businesses with security and confidence to trade with the fastest growing economy in the G20, is what they said. That's Prime Minister Keir Starmer. I don't know why I always want to call him Kieran Starmer. But anyway, him and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi sharing on social media that they were delighted to speak with one another. And again, this is their big deal. And they're trying to strike this deal in the wake of the Trump tariffs, you know, trying to get around things. I think the problem with doing anything like that is ultimately good for you. I mean, I would say, why weren't you doing business before, right? If you didn't want to do business with the United States. Ultimately, what happens here is nobody has more consumption than the United States, right? That's just really it. And I don't know if that's something to be proud of or not, but it's definitely a lot of buying power. And they can make deals all they want, side deals, and they should. Everybody should be making the deal that works best for them, in my opinion. But that isn't going to change how things are working for us. And again, just showing you that you got countries working with one another now on trade deals, all because of the United States, all because of El Trumpito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. And now he's the 47th president. So how about that? Now, something else I wanted to get into quickly before we continue. This showdown that happened on Capitol Hill today. Very interesting because Kristi Noem, Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security, she was in the hot seat, right? And I got a couple of these. Let me see if I could narrow it down to maybe the best one. But she gave so many great responses here. And ultimately, they're trying to, you know, give her the gotcha. They're always trying to give her the gotcha question, whether it's do you allow due process for people, whatever it may be. But in this one, it was back to the story about why are we deporting American kids with cancer, 2-year-olds with cancer, or whatever their latest story is. And I don't mean to sound insensitive, but ultimately, this is the choice of the family, and the United States government is facilitating the family's choice. Listen to this.
One of those forms is ICE Form 71-078, or the Caregiver Designation at Arrest form, were any of the individuals who were deported, who had U.S. citizen children deported with them, were they given an opportunity to sign that form?
Now, I just want to say that is Congresswoman Veronica Escobar asking the questions. Now you're going to get a response from Secretary Noem.
When these, the specific cases that you're referencing with these children, it was the parents' choice to take their children.
And did ICE
which it is the
follow
policy
through
of the
on the
Trump
policy?
administration to keep families together.
Ma'am,
That is what we have
reclaiming my
continued to
time.
do, is that
I
these
told you at the
children,
top of this,
their
ma'am,
parents took-
reclaiming my time. I said the questions are really simple. Yes or no. Was that form used in any of those cases?
I will get back
yes
to you
or
on
no?
that
Okay,
specific form. I
perfect.
don't know the
Thank
number,
you.
but I do know these mothers
Okay,
went on
thank
the
you.
record
The
filling out
second form,
paperwork
ma'am,
and in
reclaiming my
interviews
time.
reiterating
Ma'am,
they wanted to
please,
keep their
ma'am,
children with them.
reclaiming my time. I'd like you to avoid the filibuster so I can get to all my questions,
Answering
please.
your questions.
I got to tell you, I think Secretary Noem was being rather succinct. I mean, she was a lot more succinct than some of our callers on this program, who try to go on and on and on about certain things or getting repetitious about things. She was very straightforward and right to the point. It was Representative Escobar who really just only wanted her to answer yes or no. And again, this is a tactic to try and make the viewers that are watching these hearings think that it's something other than it actually is. And if you look at another example I've got here, you got Representative Lauren Underwood, she's a Democrat from Illinois. Shout out to WLS. And she tells Secretary Noem at the oversight hearing today, she asks her a question and then immediately just doesn't let her answer. Listen to this.
Do you believe that the Constitution grants everyone in our country the right to due process, including non-citizens?
The administration has the authority to.
Ma'am, I'm looking for a yes or no question. Yes or no. Do you believe the Constitution? Yes, ma'am. Do you,
we have
ma'am?
not conducted in
Reclaiming
any
my
kind
time,
of
Mr. Chairman. Okay. Secretary Noem, I'm just looking for a yes or no here. Do you believe the Constitution guarantees due process to everyone in America?
Due process is exactly what this Congress lays out.
Yes or no?
It is,
Okay,
and the
ma'am,
tools
I'll
that
take
you
that as
give
a
us
no.
on due process
Excuse me.
is
I'm trying to ascertain your understanding of the law as it applies to your department. And you as its leader should be able to give us a yes or no answer because judge after judge has ruled that the law is not being followed. Do you believe that the U.S. government has the authority to deport American citizens?
No, and we are not deporting
great.
U.S. citizens.
I'm so happy to hear that you do not believe that the law gives you that authority because the federal government has no authority under U.S. laws to deport any American citizen. And as I know, everyone viewing this hearing today knows that several American citizens have been deported to date.
That is not
Secretary
true.
Noem, that was not a question. Secretary Noem, that oath that we both swore before taking office was to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, not the president, not a political party, the Constitution. And that's what we're going to keep doing here at the Appropriations Committee. Thank you. I yield back.
Again, this is an appeal to everyone listening. If you have a friend, if you listen to this show every day and you go, man, this guy Valdez, how did this guy end up on a radio show? I can't stand listening to this guy. It's painful to hear this guy. If you can't stand me and my opinions, and you have a friend that's an American citizen that was deported, I want to give him the time of day. This is an open invitation to all American citizens that have been deported by the administration that started on January 20th of this year. I want to invite you on our program because I also do not know of any American citizens being deported. And I also would like to volunteer. My ancestral home is Brooklyn, New York. But outside of that, my parents were born on the island of Puerto Rico. And if anybody would like to deport me to Puerto Rico, I'd be grateful. I really would. I live in Jersey now. If anybody wants to come and pay me a visit, feel free. I love Puerto Rico this time of year. So listen, nobody's deporting American citizens. And this woman just throws that out there and says it's not a question because she doesn't want an answer. She doesn't want the truth. Oftentimes, Democrats just like to say things. It's such a shame. It really is such a shame that they get to lie with impunity. And then the rest of us have to sit here and try and correct the record. I mean, this lie has gone around so much. In this week that's passed alone, I've had some of my closest family members ask me, they're not really deporting Americans, are they? That's how much they've heard that lie. It isn't happening. Yet they will go ahead and do it. And again, the example I made, I make all the time. If I go, to a dinner somewhere, I get invited to different dinners and whatnot. And let's say in that dinner, it's a big dinner party, 10, 12 people at a table. And one of those persons is a felon. or a convict, or somebody who did time for something, for whatever. You fill in the crime, something egregious maybe. And well, I'll give you an example. I hired someone to do some work for me. This person had served 24 years or 23 3/4 of a year for murder. This is a person I hired to do work and shared this with me. If someone were to try and give me one of these yes or no gotchas, it would sound like this. Mr. Valdez, did you or did you not, yes or no, spend several hours last week with someone that was convicted of murder? Yes or no? Answer the question. I'm forced to tell the truth and say yes. And they can try and make it look like I'm something that I'm not. Try to make the truth look like something other than it is. That I hired somebody who confided in me in conversation that he had a past in being incarcerated for murder. That's got nothing to do with me. I didn't choose him because of that, and I didn't know. But he told me, what am I going to do? Kick him out? I thought he was a nice guy. Seemed like a repentant guy. Gave me some of the details about it. It was a wayward youth. Things went sideways for him. He got involved in crime, did a robbery that went wrong, got nervous. Somebody tried to retaliate at a robbery. In his nervousness, he stabbed the guy. To both of their misfortune, the guy bled out, and he didn't make it. And therefore, he gets a charge of, which probably should have been a criminally negligent homicide. But he got the charge of murder. And he got 25 years and got out in 23 years and almost 24. Bottom line is, you can spin any fact into making it look like what you want, but it doesn't mean that that's the case. So when a little girl with cancer who's in the United States that has every right to stay here and pursue her treatment has a mom that's being deported, likely because of some involvement somewhere with criminal activity, because, again, that's where the focus is. All right? They're not going after people for being somebody's housekeeper. They're going after people who are connected to gang and criminal activity. And they say, look, I'm going to be deported. My kid needs me. So if I'm going to be going to X, Y, and Z country, my kid's going to have to come with me. And this administration says, okay, we want to keep the family together. That's the truth here. Not the fact that we're deporting 2-year-olds. That's ridiculous. Anyway, more on the Supreme Court straight ahead. Keep it locked right here.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The Supreme Court is allowing the Trump administration's ban on transgender troops serving in the military to take effect while it is being contested. President Trump signed an executive order to implement that policy back in January. It had been blocked by several court rulings. What does it mean for someone who may be transgender serving right now in one of the armed forces? Does that mean that right now they could be asked to leave?
Depending on how the military is administering that, then yes. I mean, that's the whole point of seeking the stay. You're saying, hey, this is something that could cause immediate harm to people in the military right now. However, the Trump administration decides to administrate that, yes, they may be out of a job.
And that is a report on the Supreme Court, again, ruling today that the lower court ruling allowing the Trump administration to ban transgenders in the military can proceed. The ban can continue, as I understand it. I want to get to the bottom of this, as well as another big case we're going to talk about right after the break with our guest. Our guest is Michael Toth. He is a lawyer and resident fellow at the Foundation for Research and Equal Opportunity. Michael Toth, welcome, sir.
Hey, Rich, great to be with you.
Likewise, thank you for making the time to be here. And This is, I think, an interesting take because every major policy position I feel that President Trump has taken and written an executive order around and has subsequently tried to move things through Congress where they need to move through Congress to be codified has been met with a legal challenge. And I think he's fared pretty well on a lot of them, but not before, he takes a couple of losses here and there because of the political powers that are at play. And happy to see that, when they finally get to the Supreme Court, not because of politics, I think, but because of just the Constitution and the legality of it, things seem to work out. Your thoughts on this case?
Yeah, no, 100%, Rich. I think you nailed it. Last week, the U.S. Supreme Court heard a case, you referenced it kind of in the intro here, having to do with religious charter schools. Mm-hmm. And that case kind of coincided with the first 100 days of the Trump administration. And one of the points that I made as I was, talking to folks across the country about that case is it really is a first 100-day case. The Trump administration weighed in the case. The Trump administration Solicitor General, John Sauer, appeared in the case. And really, it was an opportunity for the Trump administration to kind of talk about what the administration has been doing on the issue of education and parental rights and school choice and opportunities for Americans who want to find a better pathway in education. So many of these policy positions where, to your point, the Trump administration is really taking the 80 side of an 80-20 issue, or as President Trump said at the University of Alabama this weekend, the 97 side of a 97-3 issue. The Constitution is also telling us that the executive branch has authority to set policy. And so I'm with you on this. And, we'll see how things shake out at the Supreme Court. And nobody's got a crystal ball. But, so far so good, I think, in terms of how the administration has been framing issues, not just for the American people, but also for the justices on the court.
Yeah, that's a good point. Folks, we're on with Michael Toth, lawyer, resident fellow at the Foundation for Research on Equal Opportunity. And we're going to put a pin in this part of the conversation on the transgender ban. That's pretty open and shut. The Supreme Court said the ban can continue. And we're going to open up the door to what he just mentioned, this religious charter schools funding case. This is near and dear to my heart, one, because I love religious liberty cases, and B, I've been a charter school board member for the last dozen or so years, and I believe in that wholeheartedly. So, folks, we're coming right back with me, of course, and our guest, Michael Toth. Don't go anywhere.
You, of course, have a track record now. People have heard you, and they know that, in fact, you've got the goods. You have the talent, and you have the ability to do a superb job.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. I'm going to continue our conversation on the Supreme Court and moving beyond today's decision where the Supreme Court says that the Trump administration does have the authority to continue their pause on transgenders in the military. There is also a very big case that's been brewing, historic, if you will, with respect to school choice, parental choice, and religious liberty. And ultimately, the question of this case is whether religious schools are entitled to funding from charter schools, from states that are offering funding or offering a charter to the organization applying for that charter. And this is a big deal because having started a charter school a little more than a dozen years ago, I can tell you that that was a consideration we didn't have. We weren't able to say, that we were a religious organization or anything like that, and we weren't, right? We were a bunch of concerned people that wanted to see education improved in a particularly educationally starved area of one of the biggest cities in New Jersey, Jersey City, New Jersey. So anyway, point is, I think this is a very, very big deal and something that we have to pay close attention to. And I've got a clip of audio from the Solicitor General, John Sauer, and his arguments with Justice Elena Kagan. Listen to this.
In this case, where the discriminatory characteristic, no religious need apply, is right there in the discrimination. So they haven't even made a Smith argument here.
No, it's not no religious need apply. It's non-sectarian instruction.
Non-sectarian to me means no religions. But in any event, our position...
But the point is, to the extent it does mean that, it's because religious practice, religious exercise requires a certain, because religious belief implies a certain kind of religious conduct. And here, the same argument would be met. My religious belief requires a certain kind of religious conduct, which is that I only teach members of my own faith.
Suffice to say that under the Smith analysis, at least those seem very, very different, and the government will argue that those are distinct cases.
Again, John Sauer, Solicitor General, and the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Elena Kagan. Now, to get some analysis on this and walk us through the case to help us really understand what's happening is our guest, Michael Toth. He's a lawyer and resident fellow at the Foundation for Research on Equal Opportunity. Michael Toth, welcome back. Tell us what's going on here.
Oh, my gosh, Rich, thank you so much for having me back to talk about this critical case. I mean, you nailed it. This is a huge case. And, Rich, I'll also just kind of piggyback on what you shared before the break, right? I mean, as we were going to break, you mentioned you care about charter schools and you care about religious education in the United States. Well, guess what? This case combines the two. And that is why it is so critical. And I would just say to all of your listeners, if you care about charter schools, this case is about the future of charter schools, and I'll break that down in a second. Also, if
is the deep state back at it? Do we have Michael Toth count? All right. Well, amigos, this is what happens when we get into doing live radio. Every now and again, the deep state will do what it does. Sometimes I blame the Chinese. Sometimes I blame the deep state. Here, I'm going to blame the NEA. I'm going to blame Randy Weingarten. All right. I take it all back. Michael Toth, welcome back.
I'm back. And I was just saying, Rich, before we got cut off, I was just saying on the second point, the first point is this is a charter school case. The second point, these are equally important, is it's a case about whether religious organizations are going to have the same civil rights as non-religious secular organization. It's a case about discrimination as our Solicitor General. And I just want to say one last thing for your listeners before I go further into the case. That was Solicitor General John Sauer's first case that he argued as Solicitor General. So I just want to make that point clear. He was nominated by President Trump. He was confirmed by the U.S. Senate, and his first argument was to dive into this case and for the Trump administration, the first 100 days, to stand up for charter schools and for religious equality and to tell the justices this has to happen. Huge moment, I think, for this administration, and hopefully a huge moment for the Supreme Court to sound a victory for parents that want more options, not fewer, for their children.
Yeah, really well put. Now, walk us through the elements here, because they seem to be, as many times is the case in the Supreme Court, they get into the weeds on a lot of things. What does this actually mean? Right, and here in the clip that we played, their argument is over non-sectarianism being the same as being non-religious, and of course it opens up the door to a lot more questions and precedent to be set forth in the case. So walk us through it.
Yeah, no, I'll break it down real simple. I mean, what this case comes down to is, what are charter schools? And the answer is real simple. Charter schools are private organizations that contract with the government, that are managed by private boards. And guess what, Rich? If they're a private organization, they have First Amendment rights, and that means they have a First Amendment right to the free exercise of religion. Now, what that means is a charter school doesn't have to be religious. I think the plaintiff in this case, St. Isidore, it respects all charter schools. And we've got so many tremendous, we've got 4 million American children right now in this day in 2025 who are in charter schools, in secular, non-religious charter schools. That's fantastic. These are all privately run for the most part, right? And so if a charter school is, as it is in almost all 46 states that have charter schools, a private organization that is managed by a private board, it's not the government. And that's what the other side is arguing in this case. They're saying, oh, a charter school is just a public school. Well, guess what, Rich? And this is the key point. This case is about the future of charter schools, because if the U.S. Supreme Court goes the wrong way, and this is what I lay out in the National Review piece that I published right before the argument, if they say that charter schools are the same as public schools and we're going to consider them the government, well, guess what, Rich? There are charter schools that have school uniforms that have been sued because people claim that the government can't require uniforms. There are charter schools that are single-sex charter schools. There are charter schools that focus on tribal communities in the state of Oklahoma and other places. All of this is going to be subject to litigation. And the innovation that charter schools provide, which is why so many Americans from all backgrounds are flocking to charter schools, that's going to be gone. And we're going to get the same results that we've gotten from the traditional model, which is broken. 70% of American eighth graders are not proficient in math and reading. That's what we're getting with the traditional model, right? We need change. And that's what charter schools are providing.
Really, really well put. Great question. And, Michael Toth, my understanding, and I'm a charter school guy, at least in New Jersey, the understanding I always had was that we are a public school operated by the district or operated by the charter. That was always the distinction. And we are therefore an instrumentality of the state vis-a-vis the government. And that's just how it's presented to you when you apply for the charter. The argument you make is a persuasive one and one that I think is interesting, but I think it then opens up the question of if a religious organization is going to have those same civil rights of free speech and operate a charter, I could see the lawsuits coming in saying that there's a government endorsement of religion. Unless they say they're not part of the government, then why is the government funding? And again, the government funding is really the taxpayer funding them.
Yeah, well, I think a few things. As Solicitor General Sauer pointed out in the oral argument, there are two layers of private choice here, right? So first layer is, in order to have a charter school, you need to have an organization that is formed that applies for the charter, right? So the particular party that went to the U.S. Supreme Court on April 30th, the St. Isidore Charter School, that was because a group of people, their private initiative, decided they were going to create this charter school in this particular model. Second thing, you've got to have parents that decide to send their children to that charter school, right? Sure. So you've got two layers of choice. The money doesn't just show up, right? You've got two layers of choice. So I think that's critical, right? I mean, competition is the answer, Rich, when it comes down to it.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm with you. I think it's a great argument, and I'm really hopeful to see how this gets decided, because I think it would. You mentioned a couple of things that I think were spot on. That there is a degree of innovation that charters offer to the educational space that is A, bipartisan. I think it appeals to people on both sides of the aisle, and B, is nothing but upside. It's nothing but upside for the kids that get the benefits of all of this innovation. And that would, in effect, be erased if this is decided the wrong way. So I think you're right. There's a lot on the line. Very pivotal case. Michael Toth, we're down to the wire here on time, but let everybody know how they can learn more about your work and how they can follow you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rich. And listen, I really encourage all of your listeners, go to the National Review Online. Check out the piece that I wrote with Gavin Schifries. He's my co-author. He founded a series of charter schools in St. Louis, Missouri. And check out my work in the Foundation for Research and Equal Opportunity. We're looking at connecting freedom with upside, particularly for Americans on the bottom half of the economic spectrum. So it's freeop.org is a website. You can find all my work there.
Outstanding. Michael Toth, great conversation. I hope to have you back as there's more developments on this case and others. And Godspeed to you, sir. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot.
Appreciate it, Rich. Love to come back.
God bless. Amigos, we continue. Your calls, thoughts, and reactions. Open phones across America starts right now.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
When we catch you, like all of these individuals, if convicted, we will put you behind bars. There will be no negotiating, and we will lock you up for as long as humanly possible. We will not negotiate with those who are killing our family members, including brothers, sisters, daughters, sons, parents, friends. Everyone in this room, I guarantee you, knows someone who has been afflicted with drug addiction, and many who have known someone who has lost a loved one because of this trash on our streets.
That's Attorney General Pam Bondi talking about the biggest fentanyl bust ever. 3 million pills laced with fentanyl involved in this drug bust in Salem, Oregon, catching a bad guy. And the bad guy, she described him. We could play that cut now. The description of the bad guy from Attorney General Pam Bondi. Listen to this.
The head of this organization, Sinaloa organization, here in the country illegally, 6 of these guys and women here in the country illegally. His name is Alberto Salazar Amaya. He is the leader, and he was living in Salem, Oregon. With him, they got millions of dollars, cash, cars, but the drugs were in Albuquerque, Phoenix, and Utah. That's how insulated these drug dealer cartel leaders make themselves.
There you go. The main bad guy from the Sinaloa cartel with 5 of his henchmen and women all caught up in this biggest bust in American history. 3 million fentanyl pills. Amazing. Let's go to the phones, get your reaction to this. Let's go to Jim, Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Jim, go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, how are you tonight?
Wonderful, thank you.
Good. Yeah, I was just calling about that story you were just talking about. They mentioned the DEA worked with tribal authorities, and I'm just curious how disproportionately drug addiction and fentanyl has affected those communities. And the left is always claiming to be on the side of the tribal communities, but they have no problem with standing with the cartels, literally sawing through their communities with fentanyl. And I'm just curious, you know, you had mentioned before, too, they're trying to bring these people back into the country. And I just don't understand why I'm curious what you think their rationale is for that. Is that just because Trump says they just have to take the opposite side of what he says? It just makes no sense to me.
I wish it was simply the contrarian point. And I think for some people, it's knee-jerk. If these guys say this, then I say that. And I get that because I pay attention too. I hear AOC say something, right? If All Out Crazy says something, I could almost bet every last dollar in my pocket that I'm on the other side of that issue. Just from hearing her say it. But I give it the benefit of the doubt and I listen, right? Now, I don't think that's the case, though. I think what really is the case, it's way more than just being a contrarian. There's always a bad guy and a wedge issue when you're dealing with communist rhetoric. And I do this only because I've looked at communists over the years. You look at Che Guevara, you look at Fidel Castro, you look at Hugo Chavez from Venezuela, you look at Mao, you look at any of these famed or infamous communists, And it's always blaming the big bad wolf. It's always blaming the imperialists. It's always blaming, workers of the world unite, right? Eva Peron. Who were they going against? They were going after the evil business owners, right? The billionaires, right? They're always going after someone to create this wedge. And that's what this is, right? So now it's like, oh, they're going after these poor innocent people, that are, Maryland dad, Maryland man, all of this trying to get people to feel like, yeah, you know what? They're going after you. They're going after the little guy. I mean, this is exactly what Trump did in his campaign, but he didn't do it as a communist. He didn't villainize the Democrats. He pointed out their villainy. That was the difference. Here, they're trying to villainize something that is already, it's the right thing. It's the right thing to lock up bad guys that are selling drugs and throw away the key. Yet they're trying to make it seem like it's wrong because, we are the little man. And it's that type of thinking, that us versus them type of divide and conquer routine that communists are famous for. And in my opinion, this is ultimately what they're constantly doing. They're constantly trying to condition the minds of those that will listen to think that it's us versus them, us versus them. It's constantly us versus them. And this is why I always invite people that disagree with me to call this show, because I want people to understand I'm not afraid of them. I'm not afraid of having the dialogue, and I don't hate them. I just probably hate what they believe in. Anyway, Jim, thank you for the call. Coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez. By the way, I have a big announcement that I want to make with you. I can't make it today, but this week, several days this week, I am going to be participating, celebrating something, a big milestone in my family. And I will share that with you in the days to come. But right now, we're going to go to John, San Diego, California, KNCO. Go right ahead.
Yeah, hey, I'm actually in San Diego, and I got this Democrat named Sarah Jacobs as my representative. And after I went to one of her town hall meetings, this lady named Beth Jacobs has been sending me a boatload of emails.
Yeah, what's the point?
To get money. I want to try and get Mike Lawler on your
I've had Mike Lawler on the show. He's a good guy. He's a New York Republican. I think we've disagreed on things in the past, and he's always come on when I've invited him, so maybe we'll invite him. But thank you for the tip. I appreciate it, John, and thank you for listening. Shout out to San Diego, California, KNCO. And I want to give a shout out to Lester in Daytona Beach, Florida, who says the cartels have judges paid off. That's evident when we see gang members living with the judges and judges getting locked up. Lester, good point. Shout out to WVGA. And amigos, I am Rich Valdez, your liberty-loving Latino amigo, best head of hair in late-night radio. Hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. And when I return, I will share with you my big announcement. God bless you, America.